I know. Oh, goodness.
So in addition to impressing your mom, we're going to plow through this and hopefully get going and get it all done.
She listened to our past one, by the way, and she loved it.
Really?
She thought that was pretty fun. Mr. Skeptic.
Yeah, well, that's us. Yeah. Hey, we got one official listener. If you hear noise, I mean, I can hear it. It doesn't, I don't know if it'll come out in the podcast or not, but it's cold down here. It was 67 degrees, so I turned the heat on.
Alright.
Okay, good. Because I know when we had moved to this room, you had worried about the echo, and so I specifically listened for that in the next few podcasts, and I'm like, I don't hear it. So I think we're good.
Yeah.
So last week, we intended on doing Fort Robb and the Midwest Theater in one episode, and then do the rest of the Panhandle in a second episode, and we ended up talking for 2 hours about the Fort Robb.
And you didn't split it up. That's what I was surprised. I'm like, oh my gosh, she put the entire 2 hours on there. It's like, oof.
Honestly, I thought about splitting it up, and then I thought, nah, whatever. We're good.
My mom thoroughly enjoyed it. She got a kick, so I hope other people get a kick.
Yeah, hopefully. And at least then, if people want to listen to just Fort Robb, it's all on one episode.
It's true. Yeah. Absolutely.
And we might only get through the Midwest today, but if that happens, fine. We'll just do. We're still going to do a 3-parter.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're a little pressed for time today, if we can only do one, whatever. It'll get done. Who cares?
I'm always pressed.
And I've already written the next episode. Yes, you are. You are always like, I need to leave by 9:37.
Everybody and their mother always needs me. It seems never ends.
And they always need you on the weekends.
Well, that's the only time I can give.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
And you know what? I've already got one episode ahead after this written, and I'm working on Scottsbluff's first murder. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping to get enough ahead so that, because you'll have some time off at Christmas break, I'm assuming.
I will, hopefully, yeah.
And I figured if you had a day during the week, we can just plow through and get a whole bunch ahead, so that if you have a weekend where your mom wants you to completely rebuild her house.
No, that's why we're doing it now, because I told her, like, wintertime, I hate building things in the wintertime. It's always too windy, too cold. I'm suffering through every second of it. Like, no, we're going to do this now.
So she's going to have to text me pictures. And I know she's going to listen to this, so Kim, send me pictures.
I don't have my phone. I took pictures of the roof because my grandma dearest at the end, my uncle and I, we pushed through it. I mean, this was like sunset. The sun was lowering in the sky when we were finishing roofing. And my grandma starts hiking up the ladder, and I'm like, Uncle, if she hikes one more step, shoot her with that nail gun. She cannot come up
your grandma that's like in her 80s.
Yeah. She's trying to like, I want to see it. I'm like, Grandma, get back down. Get back down. This is 2024. I will give you a picture. And I did. I took pictures. It's like, here you go. Like, you don't have to come up anymore. She was about to horse her way all the way up that ladder.
So see, she could be a ghost in the future because she falls off the ladder and dies, and then she haunts your mom's house.
Yeah, no, she'd haunt me. No.
So today we're going to start off with talking about the Midwest. Yeah, it says record.
Oh,
it's already 4 minutes, 10 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Yeah, if the button's green, we're not recording.
Oh, I thought you didn't. I didn't see you press that button.
I went ahead
Sorry, people who are listening. I wasn't even paying attention.
I just decided I'm going to go ahead and smack the record button as soon as we get our headphones on.
You were very sneaky. I didn't even see you. It's like,
And just before we start, Jerry wants to come back. He is from North Dakota, and his dad was a professor up there, and he is very I don't know if attached is the right word, but he gets along really well with the tribes up there, and I forget what he's going. He'll kick me when he hears this, because I forget what he's going up for. But he's going up there to give a speech, and so he'll be back, I believe, right around Thanksgiving. And he was like, "What episode are you working on?" I go, "Jerry, it doesn't matter. Pick one. We'll do it. Doesn't matter."
There's so much we can do.
And he knows so much more than I do. He was talking to me about Fort John, and remember how much of a struggle that was. Yeah. He gave me a couple of other tidbits of information. So I'm going to pick that man's brain as long as I can.
Absolutely.
But today we're going to talk about the ghosts at the Midwest Theater, and one in particular. See,
I have to add the sound effects. Ooh.
We got this 8 bank of sound effects we could do.
Yeah.
I don't know how to program them. So you ever go home and you figure out how to program them?
Yeah, I'll have to figure that out.
We can get some silly sound effects programmed in. But your ghost was perfect. So the Midwest Theater has been a landmark in Scottsbluff for nearly 100 years. It was originally known as the Egyptian Theater, which opened in 1927 and burned down in 1945. The Midwest was built on top of that theater and opened a year later, and we've got an episode in the works about the theater, but this is just the basics of its history that I'm gonna cover here. I did a very long, in-depth story on that, and if you actually look at it, go to Google and type in Egyptian Theater Scottsbluff, every article I found referenced the article that I wrote, so I kind of felt good about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm also kind of curious. The Egyptian, why was that a theme back then?
I don't know, but
this isn't the only one. I mean, there's
the Nile and the
Egyptians,
Egyptian were, I believe, built by the same folks, and it was a theme back then.
But I believe there's an Egyptian in Omaha.
Yeah,
Something
it was
similar.
it was a theme
that was
nationwide.
just a theme, just to have the Egyptian, because I dare say there's many cities and towns that have some sort of theater called the Egyptian. Yeah, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
and it's also the Midwest is also made in. I'm not going to say the style of architecture. We'll do that when we get to the episodes, because one, I forget, and two, I don't want to get too into it here. But the style that it was made in was also a thing nationwide. Yeah. And there are actual people who are like, I like that style, and they travel the U.S. looking at it.
I love that style personally, because it's so unique.
Yeah.
And you'd have to come back. I don't know that style either, unless it's called the Egyptian style.
No,
but it's something like a cross between French Rococo and, I shouldn't say French, like Rococo and other kind of. They had the filigree as a French, the Rococo, and other weird things, and they put the Egyptian stuff on there, so it's all mixed up. Yeah. It's all completely mixed up.
And it was a thing, and there are theaters built just like that all around the U.S. And when I had done this story, Billy and I were just chatting, and he was like, oh yeah, there are people that travel here just to see the Midwest because of the style it was made. So, so for decades now, staff and volunteers at the Midwest Theater swear 3 ghosts reside at the theater. There have been multiple reports of strange happenings, but no one has ever felt threatened by the ghosts, just unnerved or scared. So I guess, if there is a ghost, you want one that's a nice one, like Casper.
Right. Casper.
Oh, and Casper the Friendly Ghost was my mom's favorite cartoon as a little girl.
You know how terribly sad those cartoons were? Have you ever watched them?
Not as an adult, no.
Almost every single one is tragically sad. There was a Casper episode about a fox dying.
Okay, I'm never going back and watching them.
Casper makes friends with his cute little fox, and this cute little fox goes around his way, and the fox dies and becomes a ghost. And then it's Casper's friend for the rest of the Caspers, but the story is so freaking sad.
No, I'm never going back and watching them now. No.
And there's another one where he befriends a baby duck. The baby duck doesn't die. I mean, that one was kind of happy, but there was also a little tragic part. Like every part of the old Casper cartoons, there's like a tragedy.
See,
Casper doesn't get understood, and he gets ousted, or he gets like just absolutely, people scared of him. And then he gets really sad. And then sometimes there's a happy ending, but the one I remember most was the one with the fox. It's like, well, that's kind of a happy ending because the fox became a ghost, but you have to understand the fox died. That's so horrible.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I also watched almost every single original Casper cartoons. This is before the 90s when they made it, which when I grew up, the 90s version of the real life one was the first one I was introduced to.
Okay.
With, I can't remember the actor and the actresses, but it's the first one. And many people of my generation are familiar with that, but aren't familiar with the cartoons. But man, the cartoons are so sad.
See, I remember when I was,
They're so horrible. Like, they're not, it's like the dark side of Looney Tunes. It's like, what in the world were you thinking?
And how did
I don't know if it was like Chuck Berry that came up with those cartoons or what, but like, what were you thinking?
See, I was obsessed with Woody Woodpecker, so.
And Woody Woodpecker was pretty on the upside.
Yeah.
If you watch any of the Casper episodes, I'm trying to think of one that they all ended up sort of happy, but the middle part was just tragic. Like, people getting scared of him, people rejecting him, people telling him to go away. It's just like, oh, I feel bad for Casper.
See, I remember not liking Casper when I was a kid because I thought he was bullied. I guess the other stuff went over my head, but I tried to like it because I knew it was my mom's favorite cartoon when she was a little girl, but I didn't. I hated it.
Yeah, no, and I understand. Well, and it was also so that style of cartoons in that day. Most likely you think of the Looney Tunes and Bugs Bunny and all that were bright colors. All the Casper series were gloom gray colors. Everything was on a cold palette, and it was just always gloomy and dark. So, yeah, Casper was an interesting
And, how the heck did that make it so big?
I don't know.
The only thing I can guess is Ghost.
He was a ghost. Well, and he was around because there's several episodes. Like I said, he made a friend with a duck, a fox, the moon. He made a friend with the moon. I mean, from what I remember, yeah.
Yeah, great. So if I ever see the episode with the fox, I turn it off before the fox dies.
It made me cry. It was so horrible. Like,
it's terrible.
It
was. So we got Ghosts at the Midwest Theater, supposedly. So of the three, only one has been identified as an early entertainer in the area. And staff is so accustomed to the great Miss Bish that they don't really pay her so much attention because they are not afraid of her and they don't believe she's malevolent. Now, we've done an episode on the great Miss Bish, whose real name was Hubert Clare Bishop, and he entertained people in the early 20th century. He moved to the area in 1916 and worked with his mother, who was a seamstress, and he was apparently a reputable seamstress? He
I don't know that you got me on the PC version of that.
I don't know. But him and his mom had a seam.
I guess the male
custom seaming.
I guess the male
business.
version would be a tailor.
A tailor. Thank you. Oh my gosh.
The male version, female seamstress, male tailor.
And apparently they were both pretty good at the job. The great Miss Bish was said to have a heavenly voice, and everyone who heard her was delighted. Now, if I was a ghost and I was at the Midwest and I was the great Miss Bish, my butt would be sneaking up behind people and singing. You know, is it heavenly now?
A remarkable crescendo right at the end, right as your back's turned.
So in 2015, Billy Estes, who was the director of the Midwest at the time, sat down for an interview with Stuart Chittenden of a couple of 830-mile-long Conversations podcast to talk about how he learned about the theater's famous spirit. Somewhere around 2000, Billy was talking with a spiritual sight interpreter from New Mexico. And this sight interpreter was a woman who said she wanted to walk around the theater in the dark and late at night. Billy thought, what the heck. and met her that night after the theater had closed. Now, I've been there during the day, business day, the movies aren't running. And I've been down in the basement, and you don't need to be there at night to be creeped out.
God, I wish I could go down there.
Yeah.
I've been to the Midwest many, many, many times in my life, and the theater itself's kind of creepy, but I've never been down to the basement.
I still have the pictures on my hard drive. I'll have to pull them out and show them to you.
Yeah.
But it's cool, fascinating, and creepy all at the same time. And there's, all kinds of little rooms and doorways. There's a big main room down there and little rooms off of it, and it actually reminds me of when I was in Pompeii. When you walk into someone's house, there's the big open area, and then rooms are off to the side.
Oh, okay.
And so it reminded me a little bit of that, but super creepy. I was not creeped out in Pompeii. in the basement at the Midwest, I was like, yeah, okay, can we eventually get back here to the boiler so I can see the boiler and get the heck out of here?
Yeah, right.
And it was more creepy as in, oh my God, a human is going to kill me down here, rather than I'm going to encounter some ghosts.
Yeah.
So Billy's walking around with this woman, and the woman said she felt 3 spirits hanging out in the theater. One of these spirits was a male with a feather boa and a tiara and pearls around his neck. And Billy's like, oh, okay, and goes on with life. So you fast forward a few years, and Billy is at work giving a tour to some members of the American Association of University Women. And he told the ladies in the group about what this spiritual sight interpreter had told him. And one lady, I wrote exclaimed, but she was just like, oh my God! And she goes, I know who that male was. She said it was Hubert Bishop. So Billy goes on a trek to do some research about who, Hubert Bishop is, and he said he saw he saw a picture at Legacy, and I've seen a picture, the same exact picture at Legacy, with the great Miss Bish in a dark colored dress with pearls around her neck, a tiara, and a feathered boa.
Now I'm sorry, because this is the inner drag queen in me. I have to say, did he fail in drag that day? How did they know it was a he? How did they know it was a male?
I don't know, unless...
Was it obvious? Because, let's face it, I've done drag before, and I've not always passed. So maybe it was that. But if you say, like, oh, it was a guy in pearls, I'm like, I don't think the famous Miss Bish would have been a spirit that would be mistaken as a male.
Yeah.
Like, if that really was the persona that Hubert wanted to go for, you think it'd be fabulous.
Yeah.
Like, no way, passes every score. Like, there's no way. It's just like, when they say a male in pearls, I think someone like me who doesn't have the wig on yet, bald as a cucumber, with some pearls hanging down his neck with a big old furry chest.
Yeah.
Like, it's obviously a male.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I've seen the pictures of Hubert.
So have I, and he actually passes fairly decent in that time for a Victorian style, if you will, woman, because those style of dresses made it very, very hard. If you had the right makeup on, I don't think anyone could tell. Honestly.
Right.
So,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. But shortly after, they adopted the great Miss Bish as their official ghost in residence.
And to be clear, Mrs. Bish did not or ever did die in the Midwest Theater.
No.
So there's no connection like she was murdered.
Right.
Or something tragically happened. I think when we did Miss Bish, I think we told whereabouts she passed away.
Yeah, it was confusing to track down that info because she left Scottsbluff, went to Torrington, if I remember correctly, but is buried a little farther east in the state. It was hard to track down the info, but did not die anywhere near here.
Midwest.
Yeah. So why'd she decide to come back?
Why did she decide to do the Midwest and not the Lincoln House?
Exactly. Because as we did in the story...
The Lincoln House would have been, to me, more of the logical place she would have haunted.
Yes.
That was her one of the biggest moments of her life was the Lincoln Hall performances.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And now that, we're speaking about Miss Bish, some things just fell off my shelf, off the desk. and yeah, she's here. She's like, I'm here. I can be anywhere I want to be. It absolutely is not that I cannot stack things correctly and they eventually just fall. It's Miss Bish. So while Miss Bish performed all over town, it's unclear why she decided to take up residence at the Midwest, like you just brought up, Connor.
Yeah, she never died here.
She didn't die here.
No.
We don't even know if she did perform when it was the Egyptian. We assume she did because of the types of shows the Egyptian did, but
oh, so there isn't a clear
there's not
record
even
that she actually
there's not even
there's
not even concrete evidence.
Interesting, because we have evidence she did perform at the Lincoln House.
Yes.
And in Omaha.
Yes.
When you were talking about that. So there is clear evidence of that, but we don't know if she ever stepped foot in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah. So the Legacy of the Plains Museum has Miss Bish's gowns, her organ, and a few other items, but she decided the theater was where she wanted to be and not with her belongings. Although I guess in Miss Bish's defense, that was just a cornfield, I think. when she died.
That's a good point.
That's
a good point. I guess there was nothing out there.
Yeah, so there was no... But her belongings were at the North Platte Valley Museum at the time. So, who knows, whatever.
Where's the book for the recently deceased? I think we need to reference that now.
Yeah, I got to go by... I saw a Ouija board for sale the other day, like a mini version. And I'm like, oh, maybe we need to go talk to Miss Bish.
Interesting side note about the Ouija board. From my understanding, it was more or less developed by the Mattel company.
Yeah.
So it was never, ever meant to be anything more than a children's toy. It wasn't like a lot of people say, oh, the Ouija board, they try to go back and back and back to the past and all these weird things. It's like, it was made by a toy company. It was just made by a toy company, guys. It's like the people that brought you Barbie brought you the Ouija board.
Yes.
Like, congratulations.
So I've talked quite a bit to some folks for stories over the years, and I'm going to read from an article I wrote in 2022 for a publication which no longer exists. We already named them in the last episode. It was Nebraska Magazine, and it doesn't exist anymore, but I still have my notes, and as far as I'm concerned, I own the notes. So there you go. I know I own my photos because that was the agreement we had, was any photos I took belonged to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm doing that because I already did all this research, and I just think the story is worth hearing about it. The story should be out there, and just because the website no longer exists, that information shouldn't disappear.
Absolutely.
So now it's out there somewhere for some future person who can talk to Miss Bish.
Mm-hmm. You never know.
So at the time, I spoke to Krista Baird, who was the office manager. And while she never experienced anything herself, her daughter Savannah had. During COVID, the two had worked out at the Skyview Drive-In and were bringing the cash proceeds back to the theater, to the store, to put it in a safe place. Put it in a safe, not just in a safe place. Put it in the safe until the bank opened in the morning. And so for those of you who don't live in the Scottsbluff area, during COVID, moving containers were placed out in a field on the Scottsbluff Airport's property so people could still go out and see the movies, but at a drive-in and safely distanced from other people.
Yeah.
And I believe it was Aulick Industries who donated the containers and, all the stuff to get the movies up and running, and then the Midwest
yeah.
just took their films out there.
A remarkable thing, by the way, they did. Thank you. If Alec and the Midwest were the ones who didn't use this, thank you very much. I mean, you guys helped us so much during COVID. I mean, we can't thank you enough. This drive-in movie theater is no longer open.
Right.
Because, COVID came and COVID went, and the novelty wore off. But during the time, I can't tell you how many people thoroughly enjoy going to that theater. And it's like an old school nostalgia to it that they put to it. So it was very, very wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you, Alec and Midwest.
And I don't know if you were working at the shelter with me at the time, but we would take the shelter kids out there on Thursdays.
No, I was at the very tail end. I didn't come.
You were
until
there
COVID
at the.
Was after.
Okay.
I was after. Okay. COVID.
Yeah, we used to take the kids there. I think it was at least Thursdays, but I know they went at least once a week to go out there and watch the movies. And every week they were like, "Oh, this is stupid." And then I'd get to work at 10:00, and half the time I'd have a text that the movie wasn't over yet, so they weren't back. And the kids would come back and they're like, "Oh my God, that was really fun." I'm like, "Yeah."
It's something these kids nowadays would never experience otherwise. I guess I shouldn't thank COVID for that, but how we responded to COVID with that was very unique and very cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
So Krista and Savannah would take the money from there, bring it back to the Midwest and put it in the safe. Because, especially if it's, Saturday or Sunday, and no banks open.
There's nothing out there.
Yeah. So Krista and Savannah arrived at the theater shortly before 11 p.m. And I think this was a Friday night. It might have been Saturday night, but it was on the weekend. Savannah offered to take the money in so Krista could stay in the car. And Savannah was only inside the theater for a few moments when she called her mom on the cell phone and asked if there was anyone else in the theater. So it's 11 o'clock at night. So Krista told her no and was like, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, the bathroom lights are on." You know what you and I are thinking, right, Connor? Somebody forgot to turn the lights off. Yeah. Or there's a short switch. I have one at the bottom of the stairs right now that I got to get fixed, and I'm afraid to turn that light on because I can hear it crackling when I turn it on. I don't want my house on fire. So Krista assured Savannah the cleaners were probably just forgot to turn them off when they were there. Savannah was all relieved and calmed down and hung up, and then a few minutes later, the back door of the theater flew open, and Savannah ran outside, and she jumped in the car and locked the doors. So she...
Needless to say, she was scared.
Yeah, it was just a little frightened. She was putting the money in the safe, and the light to the basement came on. Again, how old is this theater?
Yeah. But let's first reiterate. No automatic lights have been installed in the Midwest Theater to our knowledge, right? So
right.
There's no auto lights.
No.
Kind of like what we have nowadays. You walk in, the lights turn on. None of us think anything of it because they're auto lights. There's a sensor somewhere.
Yeah,
and that hasn't been installed in the Midwest.
Yeah, okay. And I've been down in the basement area where this took place, and there were times when Joe was taking me down there. Oh wait, I gotta go back and get and flip the switch on, or halfway in.
So there was a switch on the wall, so it wasn't one of those really really old school ones where you had to go up, find the light bulb in the dark, and have like a little chain rope and clink.
No, there are still a few of those old style ones there, but no, where we were going, they're switches.
Gotcha.
So Savannah told her mother, "I didn't stick around to find out if anyone was there," which I got to admit.
Smart person. Yeah. Savannah clearly watched enough horror films to be that person that doesn't stick around. It's like, no, I'm going away. Screw this.
Exactly. So I give her kudos there. I would be running too.
I would too. Nope. Fight or flight. I'm going. I'm out of here. Nope.
So both the women believe that it was Miss Bish. I don't know. To me, scaring the crap out of me and flipping lights on and off is not a kind ghost.
No.
Taking your light and moving it over here.
Yeah. I guess that would be like at the very least, if you're not malevolent, you're basically just screwing with with the living. It's like,
And I mean, if I did not like those people, maybe I would screw with them a little bit. But I've met both these ladies. They're very nice ladies. There's, she just wants to put the money in the safe and go away. And I'm pretty sure, this is just a guess, but I'm pretty sure she's probably never volunteered to go in there by herself alone since then.
It's true. When I was growing up, I used to live in Rawlins, Wyoming, and there was the old prison in Rawlins, Wyoming. It's still there. You can still take a tour of it. I took a tour of it several times when I used to live there, and I can't tell you how creepy that place was. To this day, I still remember it because it's so nightmarish. I never saw anything there because I always took the tours in the daytime. Of course, I was always with my mom. I was just a kid. I really liked going there because she always got me cap guns. She got me cap guns and the sheriff badge in their gift shop. So, I was like a little rootin' tootin' cowboy. I loved going to that prison for that reason. But whenever we took a tour every time, and it was just the creepiest prison ever. It was just so dark. There wasn't a lot of light. And if you knew nothing about the prison and walked in there without a tourist, I feel you'd still feel that just absolute hauntedness of the place. It's just eerie and quiet and big, very, very big, large rooms. So I can see that if you're not used to a place that's old and you go in there in the dark. Yeah, I'd be freaked out. I still to this day don't think I'd feel comfortable going to that prison in Rawlins in the dark by myself. Yeah, it'd be creepy. Yeah.
I remember watching those. What was it? Ghost Hunters.
Yeah.
When that first came on, just to see, because I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're going to do this. Yep, they did that. Oh, they'll probably do that. Yep, they did that too. Okay, whatever. But if I was with those guys in a building in the middle of the night, I would not only am I going to be creeped out because it's dark, I'm unfamiliar with the place and where I'm going. And then these guys have their anxiety jacked up to 100.
Yeah, because they turn off the lights on purpose.
Yeah. and I'm going to be creeped out and scared just because I'm with them.
TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good TV.
Yeah.
To be creeped out and scared. And I'm sure if going back to that prison in Rawlins, you were there in the middle of the night and you heard a clunk, chunk, and a thunk, it would be natural.
Yeah.
It's a huge prison. I mean, it's absolutely huge. There's things, pipes, and everything that just kind of wiggle in the night.
And if you're not there and you're not familiar with it, you can't say, oh, that's the pipe up on the third floor that always does that. You're just like, oh, my God,
And there is such a thing as, I don't know what the technical term is, but I've called it the house is breathing. And that's a natural occurrence because houses are made of wood and stone. So as the day goes by, the house heats up, the wood expands, and then as it cold, it contracts, and that makes that rickety sounds. And it's completely natural, and it's completely observable. Scientists have debunked it for a very, very long time. So that could always be a thing too.
Yeah. And where I grew up, we called that the house was settling.
The house was settling. Yeah. Exactly. The house was settling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a ghost. But, you want to be scared, I'll read you some more here. So lights turning on when no one else is in the theater is a common occurrence. It's one story I've heard from a variety of people over the years. Probably at least a dozen people have told me about lights coming on. It's an old building. There are times where I've gotten into bed and I close the door so the cats don't come in while I'm sleeping. And I'll look to the floor at the door. I'm like, oh, the light's on. And then you got to make that decision. I'm already warm in bed. Yeah. Do I want to get back out or not? And there have been times I've left the light on all night because I'm cold and I'm nice and warm under the blanket and I don't care. And it has nothing to do with ghosts. It has everything to do with me being a dummy and I forgot to turn the light off. And that's what I think a lot of that is someone forgot to turn the light off or it's coming on because there's a short somewhere. I'd be more worried about getting an electrician in there, to find what's wrong with the the lights before the place goes up in flames.
Sure. It was actually not. I don't remember that ever being a thing that scared the Scooby-Doo gang back going to Scooby-Doo. Like lights turn on and Scooby-Doo jumps in Shaggy's arm like zoinks. And it's like, I don't remember that. Usually there had to be a sound like a whoa sound.
Yes. And if they were scared, you got to remember Scooby snacks were probably pop. They were probably pop brownies.
And that's what Savannah didn't have. She didn't have no Scooby snacks. She did okay.
Yeah. See, if you go in the Midwest in the middle of the night, take your Scooby snacks with you. You'll be okay.
Take your pot brownies. You'll be okay.
It's illegal to have any pot in Nebraska right now. Please don't actually do that.
Yeah, please don't. Not yet. We're working on it, folks. We are working on it.
Fingers crossed, couple of weeks. So the spirits also seem to be a mischievous lot as well. Reports of the paper towel dispenser near the concession stand shooting out towels have been made. The automatic paper towel dispenser is motion activated, and you have to wave your hand under it, and the next sheet will advance, and that's just for people who have never seen it. But yeah, apparently this just starts and keeps going.
All right. Well, then half the restaurants I worked at haunted.
That's
your evidence.
There you go. I've heard this one a few times as well. When Krista relayed it to me, she thought someone was there, but it was just her. So her back was to it. Mm-hmm. So she assumed someone was there because it started going. She turns around, there's nobody there. I don't know. I've never seen that happen, but usually when I go there, I don't go behind the concession stand, but at the concession stand, there's a bunch of people there. So,
well, and if there is something I thoroughly believe as far as senses go of humans can sense when they walk into a building and the building is old. Mm-hmm. It's not brand new. It doesn't have the smells of a brand new building. It doesn't have the smells of a modern building when the smells kind of dissipate and you get the janitorial smells. Mm-hmm. It's old because you get musty. It starts to smell like it's never clean. It's kind of moldy. You get that pungent wood varnish smell. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a lot to do with people's psyche when they walk into these buildings, because you have a natural sense that you're walking into an old place, not a new place. And I think that has something to do with it, honestly.
Yeah, and we associate those old places with it must be haunted and scary.
Yeah, because why not? Yeah.
But see, Miss Bish is not here because Londo is stretched out like a big old burrito on the floor, napping. And if Miss Bish was here, he would probably be trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Instead, he's napping and being good for once. So, retired bookkeeper Harry Aiden also told me that while she hadn't had the hair-raising or nerve-wracking experiences others have had, she attributed a lot of strange occurrences to Miss Bish while she worked there. Every now and then, my adding machine would just go clickety-click, Harriet said, but I don't know if it's her. I've also heard stories of, you get up, you leave the room to go do something, you come back, and the stapler's in a different place.
Sure. And to our audience, an adding machine was an old-fashioned, it wasn't old-fashioned, it was a calculator that had a spool on it, mm-hmm. like a receipt ticker tape. And so every time it pushed through, you'll go and go to the. So I'm assuming that's what she heard. Like a sound.
Yeah. And she still used one when she worked there.
I know many people that still use it because they're almost obsessed with that sound because it's like it's just like a thing they've done all the time.
And if you can make that transition to a keyboard, I mean, no, because the adding machine is designed so that if you hit 15 plus 22 plus 33 it'll add it up.
It adds it up, and then I remember growing up as a kid, because that was still a regular thing. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't even look at that adding machine. They would look right at you and just type. Mm-hmm. Just like, here you go. It's like bankers, old school bankers. Yep. Yeah, they were incredible people.
Yep. They were kind of cool to watch
It
when they worked.
Fascinated me because the most fascinating me, they never looked at you. They never looked at what they were typing. They just looked straight at you and just like, yeah, here we go. Here we go.
Yep. Like, and then you'd look it over. You're like, yep, this is right.
Yep.
So former communications and grant manager Joe Dutton told me that during an event on October 13th, 2022, staff and volunteers were convinced Miss Bish was there as well after a series of minor problems arose. The biggest issue was a malfunctioning ticket machine. So Joe told me we had tickets printed as a test and everything worked fine, but as soon as we opened the doors to the public, it didn't work. And fair disclaimer here, Joe Dutton and I worked together as reporters at the Star Herald. So I was like, Joe, I need to do a haunted story when I did this a couple of years ago, and I know Midwest is supposed to have ghosts. I'm like, dude, let me in, let's talk. He was like, all right, So, and then he took me down in the basement to some places that Billy had never taken me to. There's one spot that I would love to go to, and behind the stage there's a ladder on a wall that goes up, and it is not secured very well into the wall anymore. And so Billy was like, I would hate it if you fell 20 feet.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like a fire ladder.
Yeah. And I forget where it goes. I think it like went up to the lights above or something. I don't remember where it went, but I was like, dude, it's all right. Don't worry about it. I go, I don't weigh that much. It's all right. And Billy's like 9 feet tall. And he has gone up on that ladder. And I'm like, dude, you weigh more than me. And he's like, Irene, come on, it's a liability. I'm like, dang, I tried every way I could to get up there. It's the only place I haven't been, and I probably never will be because it's not really safe. And I get it.
Sure.
It's like when I would cover the zoo. Come on, man, let me pet the tigers. They're like, yeah, no.
Yeah. And I'm sure that ladder leads up to the skeletal structures of the light system.
Yeah. Because it is off the stage. So
well, and back in the day,
they had the whole big open.
Yeah,
bits.
if you go to, my mom and dad were actually part of the props department in our high school, and my mom actually took me to said high school later on, actually just a few years ago. But if you looked up in the rafters, there were actually gangplanks along the rafters where people would walk up there to do various things like props, lights, and all that.
Yep.
So, and that's what they used to do. So I imagine it was more or less the same thing. They used to have gang runners up there to drop certain props or to adjust certain lights, because obviously nothing was motion activated back then. So if you wanted someone to hit their light, you actually had to physically move the light.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Miss Bish, it seems, enjoys making phones ring. So the phone will ring, they'll pick it up, and there's not even a dial tone. It's just dead on the other end.
That's the marketer or the people that want your vote.
Oh, gosh, I will be glad when election season is over. I'm getting texts and mailers. A lot of those,
yes. Like, ringing, there's just nothing but a dial tone. It's like, crap.
Yep. You're like, oh. So there's also, Miss Bish also seems to like flicking lights on and off throughout the theater and other minor things to indicate that she doesn't mean any harm. She's just messing around. I don't know. I'd still get pretty ticked. And I would probably eventually yell, Hubert, knock it off, And then the great Miss Bish becomes a malevolent ghost and will never leave me alone. So I was told the lady who cleans the Midwest won't stay by herself in the theater. So I'm guessing she's heard a bunch of stuff at night. It's an old building.
Well, I'm also I'm a little sad here. You guys keep saying, "Oh, it's not a malevolent ghost. It doesn't mean any harm." Well, why are you bolting? Like,
yeah.
If it is Casper, why don't you just say hi?
Yeah. I mean, at least Renee up at Fort Robb, she was like, hey, you guys need to knock it off. I need to close up and go get my kid from school. Yeah. And then they stopped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just like,
at least the ghosts up there are more cooperative than here. Here, they're like, oh my God, and they never want to go around again.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. If this happened the first few times, my fight or flight would have probably kicked in and I would have been uncomfortable and would have left. But if this is my job, And if I wanted to get a paycheck, I had to go back to this place. I think I'd have to conquer my fears and be like, okay, let's figure out what's happening here.
And then you hear the same noise in the same place all the time.
Yeah.
And then you're able to scientifically knock that off and go, yes, this is what's causing it. It's not a ghost.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she's not the only one who doesn't want to stay in the theater alone, especially at night. Some folks brush the incidents off or shrug them off and suggest it's another day at the office. But it can be an unnerving experience when you know you're alone and strange things start to happen. Some of the people I've talked to, they shrug it off. They're just like, yeah, whatever. But you're here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Come here at 3 a.m. and do your job. You know, I've said to them before, come do your job at 3 a.m. and see if it doesn't creep you out and how much work you get done.
Because that's actually a very logical thing. And I can contest to that. I used to work for security for a company where you work 12-hour shifts, and I had the 4 to 4 shift, so 4 p.m. I'd come in till 4 a.m. I had my boss was a Vietnam vet, and he used to get a kick about midnight telling me one of his Vietnam stories. I always let him because he was someone that really suffered through that war.
Right.
I always felt that he needed to tell somebody, so why would I tell him no? But he always had a way of telling it at midnight. I don't know why. He would wait until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was really the time to tell ghost stories or Vietnam survival stories, because I was really, really chilled and freaked out and horrified whenever he told these stories at that time. Because he'd tell me again at midday the similar story, and I wasn't nearly as perturbed. There's just something about staying up that late, no matter if you got a nap or not, if you were fully awake or not, there's just something about that time of night that puts you in a psyche in the mind. I don't know if that's scientific. I don't know if that has something to do with humans not being nocturnal. I mean, we're not nocturnal animals. So when we get to that stage where we force ourselves to be nocturnal, maybe that's what's going on. But I could tell you I was freaked out every time he'd tell me one of these Vietnam stories. Because, I mean, they were always horrible. The most horrible stories. And he lived through all of it. So that's even, I mean, it's harrowing because this is a remarkable man. And he ended up getting a family and having a pretty comfortable life after Vietnam. But holy cow. Like, he would. And then after he'd tell me these stories, we were a part of this huge facility that we'd have to go and patrol all alone, all by yourself.
Oh, yeah.
There's nobody else in this facility. In this facility, I can't say too much because of my past contractual obligations, but it was a hub that had major, huge generator buildings. So if the power went out, the generators would kick on and keep the building going. Okay. And these generator buildings was the size of a small aircraft warehouse. They were huge. You couldn't see the ceiling when you walked in. And there was usually 1 or 2 lights that lit it. It was never well lit. And you have the constant buzzing noise of these. This is basically the backup generators that would kick on the big generators if that would happen. So it'd have to go through this. And then I'd have to go outside and walk the entire perimeter in the middle of winter. By the way, most of my time here was during the middle of winter, so not only was it cold, it was silent. And I can't tell you how many times I really was just scared. I did my duty, but I was so uncomfortable. It was so creepy to go through these things in the dead of silence, go through all these big, big warehouse places with nobody there. And then one day I went through, and then the generators actually kicked on. And when these generators kicked on, it's like a Boeing 747 going on for the first time. It's like, I will not lie to you, audience. I pissed my pants. I mean, my trousers were wet. I was so fucking scared because I never heard it before. And usually when they turn on, they have earbuds by the door, so you can put them on. And I never put the buds on because the generators never kicked on at night like that. It just happened to be a night where the power flickered and those generators had to kick on to keep the building running. And oh my God. I mean, because it's several things happening at once. It's the generators kicking on. It's the air vents clacking open to receive the air into the building. Oh my God, it was so terrifying. So I can totally understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's creepy things that have nothing to do with ghosts.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, folks, pissed my pants. I was wet for the rest of the night. I was so wet for the rest of the night. A creepy Vietnam story. Walk in the middle of the night, the dead of dark, no one there, and something that sounds like a Boeing 47 that was kind of reminiscent to the Vietnam story.
Oh,
It was so real. It was so real to me. So yeah.
I get that. I used to work as a community service officer at UNLPD. Is step up from security guard, but a step down from a police officer. And I'm patrolling Cather Pound Nyhart because you would do the dorms and the buildings on campus. I was assigned to the dorms, so I always worked the dorms. I didn't check the buildings. But supposedly Nyhart is haunted. And they described stuff to me, and there's a part in the basement where students don't go. It's all just for maintenance stuff. And, of course, that's where most of the ghosts are. So
ghosts are always in maintenance.
Yeah.
Guys. They're always trying to fix things. Got nothing else better to do.
Yeah. Stuck here for eternity, might as well fix the light switches.
Might as well fix that light switch.
There you go. That's why the light switches are flickering.
Exactly.
They're just checking to make sure they're working.
Yeah.
There you go. But yeah, 30 minutes after I was told about these ghosts, I had to go check that area, and I was creeped out because I just had been told these creepy stories, and then I checked Pound and Nyhart all the time, and then spring break comes, no one's there, or no, it was summer break. You still got to check the buildings to make sure they're empty, so they're locked up. The only person in the building is your fellow CSO that you just relieved, and they left for the night. You still got to check the building, and there's not supposed to be anybody in the building. And one year, two of the CSOs that checked the buildings, not the dorms, we had master keys. Yeah, I got down to the third floor, so I believe Cather Pound was 11 floors. Got down to the third floor, and they jumped out of one of the rooms. They are so lucky they could move quickly because I swung at one of them. It didn't literally scare the crap out of me, but it scared the crap out of me.
So Irene has the fight, not the flight. I will punch a ghost. Yeah. You just come at me.
Well, I was going to punch him, knock him down, and then run. But I was like, I hate them forever for that. So if you're ever at the Midwest Theater in Scottsbluff, it is said Miss Bish mostly stays in the south stairwell, and staff encourage you not to panic or worry. Just wave, say hello, tell one of Scottsbluff's finest entertainers ever that she has the voice of an angel.
And don't distrag. Don't distract.
Yeah. And, maybe one day she'll sing for you. If you go in that south hallway enough and say, "Hi, Miss Bish, you sing awesomely." Maybe one day she'll sing for you.
Yeah. And if anyone doesn't know Miss Bish, please come back to our previous podcast. When we talk about her, she's a remarkable person.
Yeah.
A remarkable human being.
Yeah.
She did so much more than just do
drag.
What we call now drag. I mean, she helped during
the flu pandemic. That's why her organ is so important, because she sat on people, like no one would go to people's homes when they died because of the flu, and she would go and she would pull out her portable organ and play music. Yeah,
and a little curiosity for you guys to think about. The stories we just mentioned was during COVID. So, I wonder if she came back because she may have remembered what it was like during a pandemic.
And she's looking for her dang organ so she can keep playing.
Well, we need to take it back to the Midwest.
Yeah, it's a legacy of the plains, Miss Bish. Go there. Go there and play your organ. So that's it for today's ghost stories. We have plenty more next week, and you can hear tales of folks who have refused to leave after passing their shedding their mortal coil.
We will be a little after Halloween, but I think still before Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead.
That's November 1st, right? Right.
Is it November 1st?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
I got to look on the calendar.
But it's coming up.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of be between those times, still kind of in the spooky season, not quite to Thanksgiving yet.
Yeah.
So.
And it's our podcast, and we can do spooky stories whenever we want
to. I'm still happy. I'm still looking for, I think during Christmas we need to do another kind of spooky season in honor of Dickens and Ghosts of Christmas Past.
Oh, there you go. Write that.
I think we need to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There you go. You need to write that for me.
Absolutely.
So that's it for this time. Next time, come back for more ghosts and spooky stuff. Ooh. I'm Irene.
I'm Connor.
And this is Storytelling on the Plains.